The aim of the Crypto Valley Association, based in Zug, is to try and build a strong blockchain ecosystem. But earlier this year, it saw a new face at the helm. That's after Daniel Haudenschild left his post as Swisscom blockchain CEO to take up presidency of the Crypto Valley Association. And he's actually here with me today to tell us how he plans to write the new chapter at the organization. I want to start with a look at the question that's still on everybody's minds, which is why did you exactly leave Swisscom blockchain for Crypto Valley Association?
Well, I think it's not exactly I left for the Crypto Valley Association. I think luckily I was elected to the presidency of Crypto Valley, which offers the ability to do something and help a very important ecosystem for Switzerland and the blockchain in general to get to the next stage. I think it coincided with my leaving Swisscom, and I think Swisscom is a wonderful organization. It's amazing that companies like Swisscom are doing so much in blockchain. It just wasn't the right place for me at the time.
There's a lot of praise that I hear from you, and let me remind you that in January we actually spoke and you talked about the company growing rapidly and also raking in profits. So I'm wondering, at a time when you can say that it's doing quite well, why would you leave at that stage?
Right, so to harness some of the things that are happening in blockchain right now, I'm a very firm believer that there's only one area that can make that happen, and that's venture. The only way to be able to kind of get into the capability and some of the profits that you see is probably not with a large corporate, but within venture capital, because only they can move and fail fast enough, but also move fast enough in order to capture some of the opportunities that we see.
When you were voted in, not everyone was very happy with the decision. I mean, we did see 2 board members leave at that exact time. How do you deal with getting off to not such a good start or such a warm welcome?
Well, I think you can't really pay attention to how everybody's feelings and everybody's intentions in what the Crypto Valley Association was, right? Or is going to be. I think the Crypto Valley Association is the strongest blockchain ecosystem globally. I've been on a lot of calls with Asia and America and London, and they don't know of any other association that works quite in the same way and has quite the reach and the influence that the Crypto Valley Association does. And so what we can definitely say is that the Crypto Valley Association has stuttered in its job of being an effective organization, and what needs to be done now is to reestablish the organization in a way that its operations are effective, right? So I think some of the criticisms came from the fact that, okay, the board is now made up of lawyers and bureaucrats and nobody's really there from the startup scene. Fair enough, and that's a valid concern for us as well, right? Because one of the biggest important pieces of the ecosystem is venture and startups. At the same time, if the roof is on fire, you're not necessarily worried about the child on the 3rd floor playing with matches, right? You got to put the roof out first, right? And some of the things that we are fixing, right, is the membership in the association grew at such a phenomenal pace that the tooling that we had just to keep up with membership and association is woefully inadequate, right? So we're fixing just some of the basic infrastructure and plumbing of what the association needs to do, and my 8-year-old son can tell me exactly what's wrong and how to fix it. It doesn't really require, and what we've done is we've just postponed the bringing in 2 new board members, right? So we have 5 board members so that we can remain a small and effective team.
What kind of skills and qualifications do you hope to see filling those 2 seats?
Well, I think that what we're trying to do is unite the valley, right? We came to a valley divided. We came to a lot of people, starting to make a split between Zurich and Zug and Lausanne and Lucerne and Geneva, and to be from the outside. I mean, if you ask an American what the difference between Lausanne and Lucerne is, he'd probably say it's past tense, present tense in the same place, right? But what you have is, for Switzerland, that does not do us any favors, right? So what we need to do is we need to present Switzerland as an ecosystem that's friendly for crypto. The regulators are doing their part. They just came out with some fantastic changes and proposed laws last Friday. And what we need to do is make sure that the other parts of the ecosystem are working, right? That means the incubators, that means the venture capitals, that means the startups, that means the funding. All of those things need to play along.
There's a lot on your plate right now, and you mentioned when you came in that there were some divisions that you needed to fix. There have been talks about infighting within the association, and since you came in, how have you actually seen that, or what have you been doing to address that?
So we have the joy of working with a completely new board. There is no, other than Kevin Lally, who received the most votes of anyone to receive the position of board member, having done such a stellar job as executive director. Everyone else on the board is brand new, and that gives us a clean slate to start from. We don't think a lot. We don't spend a lot of time worried about the past, right?
Yeah.
I think that what we are working on is making sure that the behaviors of members and officers of the association is transparent. We have assigned Hans Kuhn as ethics officer, right? After 15 years at the Swiss National Bank, and he's now a lawyer working in digital asset law. I think that that's a fantastic, step in the right direction. We've completely revamped the budget. We've got new procedures in place in order to make transparent any funds that flow through the organization. And again, with the new tooling, what happened before is that inquiries into the crypto valley, they didn't sometimes get to the members who would want to see them, right? And for most parts, that was just because of an ineptness of the tools, right? So, hi, I'm a bank from Japan. I would like to come to visit the crypto valley, right? Hi, I'm the Canadian Chamber of Commerce. Hi, I'm a full stack Python programmer, and I'd like to come to the crypto valley. Those inquiries didn't go out to the people who could benefit from them, and so there was the perception that's because they were giving away under the table to specific parties. Right now, that perception may have been true in certain cases, but for the most part, it was probably just because of inadequate tooling, right? And our ability with the IT infrastructure that we have and are now replacing, it wasn't capable of actually handing those into the interested parties, right? And that's unfortunate, right? But that then kind of created this perception that the crypto valley is actually the worst place to join if you want to do anything in blockchain, because everything's being passed out to a select number of parties, right?
Do you plan to ban proxy voting at the next General Assembly, or the idea that people can, if they have enough Swiss francs in their pocket, can just buy votes? Yeah,
that's interesting. I mean, which is why it's so stunning that the election happened the way it did. That we got such a powerful board in place, and I think we did it just from the votes in the room, to be honest, right? What we have now is we have a fantastic startup that's come and said, we will implement a blockchain-based voting mechanism for the Crypto Valley Association. So we will be based on blockchain voting. With identification, two-stage authentication based on the mobile phone. So we are doing what we finally said we will be doing, right? So and that's good, right? So we're eating our own dog food.
Looking at your track record, you spent over a decade at EY before going to Swisscom Blockchain, and now you're here at the CVA, or Crypto Valley Association. How has that transition been like, where maybe the balance sheet is no longer the most important priority?
Well, it's different. I think it's actually quite liberating, right? Because for me, it's very easy, right? I mean, when we talk about should we be partnering with them or should we be doing something with them, I'm like, well, our mission statement is increase blockchain adoption, right? So anything that we can do to help other organizations, even if they're in the same space or in the same thing, that actually increases just one other company looking up blockchain with a serious eyes, that's a benefit, right? You don't have to, I mean, if we're competing against a tender and there's a $4 million prize at the end of it, then it's toe to toe and let the best man win. But in this case, it's very liberating, because you can just say, look, anything that we can do to help the ecosystem grow, it helps us, right?
Do you think that some of that corporate mindset will still trickle down, where you'll think, okay, we need to ramp up membership, we need to still bring in some sort of fee to keep this association afloat? Well,
definitely, and I think that's maybe where some of those things become an asset, right? Well, we realize that in our army of volunteers are difficult to manage, and it's difficult to get outcome-oriented things, right? So not-for-profit does not mean no turnover, and what we're doing is we've sort of removed the importance of the board. We want to be in the backseat as a non-executive board. We want to increase the importance of the working groups, because they're really what drive the content of the crypto valley. They're what influences and changes the markets. And then what we want to do is make sure that those have an ability to get out and to the market. So that means we've strengthened our events teams and we've strengthened our communication teams. We've actually brought those up to the board as board positions and no longer working groups. And our direction is very much to that the events, there's no reason the events can't turn a profit. And there's no reason that companies that are driving events like the Crypto Valley Conference can't make those events extremely profitable for themselves, right? The Crypto Valley Association shouldn't necessarily see that as a bad thing, right? Because if you get people's passion aligned to things, if they can also feed their families from it, right?
The point of the association is really to build up a stronger ecosystem, and with that it means also trying to increase your membership. And among that, sometimes you do get some bad eggs that might have not been vetted as well. And so recently there was an issue regarding one of the CVA members where it's been alleged to have actually been a fraudulent organization based in Mauritius. So with that still ongoing, how do you plan to make sure that future members are legitimate?
Well, that's a very important point, right? So we are not a policing organization, nor do we claim to be, right? We are a membership that strengthens a membership organization that takes, very simple. We don't do KYC on our members because we're not a bank, right? And nor do we have any financial obligation to do so. At the same time, people using our brand in order to proliferate fraudulent behavior is extremely detrimental to the entire ecosystem and every other legitimate blockchain company out there. And it's hard enough as it is. It's not as warm as it looks out here, by the way. It's partially due to the crypto winter, right? But it's not easy to make a living right now in blockchain, right? And so these companies that are using fraud to gain merit or defraud by defrauding their customers, that's not healthy for anybody. So what we've done is we're working with Waxman to create protocols where we have a rapid response for whistleblowers that we can immediately close off and clarify items, right? And again, that comes kind of back, and we have Hans Kuhn, who's a lawyer and who's our ethics officer, and who's working to make that effective, right? So when someone hits the red button and we go into whistleblowing mode and we set out information about certain areas, then that happens relatively quickly. Now again, it comes back to a relatively small, not-for-profit organization with an army of volunteers, and therefore it takes time for our IT systems to get up, right?
So let's speak about the future. What is the strategic direction that you want to take the CVA going into 2019?
Well, so I think, I think what one of the things that we see is that, and we've asked our corporate sponsors this as well, and we saw that if the Crypto Valley Association got eaten up by the ground tomorrow and there would be no Crypto Valley, right, what would be the next thing that you would associate with? Is there an other, right? Is it in Germany? Is it in the UK? Is there anything similar out there? And the answer they kind of resounded was no, there isn't, right? So this has to stay here and it has to stay for Switzerland. I think the other thing is that, and you can see it from this conference, right? From Palo Alto to Shanghai to Hong Kong, right? We have an international brand, right? And I think that international brand brings people together in Switzerland to discuss what is a global phenomenon, right? And that is how blockchain is going to change industries and how this technology is going to really be a game changer for financial inclusion and a whole bunch of other things that really help things out, right? Also, the provenances of limited resources that we have on the planet, like palm oil and other things, right? So I think that those, that internationalism is something that we definitely want to strengthen. We've created now a working group that's going to be focusing on international relations because we get an awful lot of questions from Turkey and from all over the place, about people wanting to visit and replicate what some of the things that we're doing here. For me, and this was also a discussion with our friends from Silicon Valley, we've got not a capital gap, but a funding gap here. And Silicon Valley is much, much better at saying, okay, here's two guys and a dog, and they've got this wonderful idea. Let's put everything around them that this idea can turn into a business and turn into an operating concern, right? So what do they need? Oh, they need laptops, they need Office, they need HR, they need infrastructure, they need accounts payable, receivable, all those kind of business building things, right? And here in Switzerland, very often, the entrepreneurs are left to their own devices, right? And they might be the best blockchain engineers in the world and come up with ultra creative stuff, but their ability to translate that that into an operating concern falls short. So I think that strengthening the ecosystem is our mission, right? We have to make sure that Switzerland's able to provide all of the building blocks to make a successful business from an entrepreneur's good idea.
Let's finish up with a look at what you just spoke about, which is Silicon Valley. If you had to really pinpoint for a blockchain entrepreneur to succeed, is it going to be Crypto Valley or Silicon Valley?
Obviously, it's Crypto Valley. I think that what we have here is a very old open jurisdiction, regulatory, and that's open to change and adopting crypto. We are also, I think, in a global position, much more connected to Europe and Asia, where we see a lot of the, let's say, inertia coming from blockchain.
Great, thank you very much, Daniel.
Thank you.